First of all, like Oliver said, I'm always quite fascinated that sort of so many different students who have the same task, the same program, the same challenge, come up with completely different ideas. That's fascinating. It's sort of this creativity among sort of students and people. So compliments for that. You can see that there are some general ideas, the same elements, but still very a lot of different concepts for the same problem actually. For me the question is, I mean, Breuer actually designed sort of a total object. So it's completely designed as an object with a strong facade, and that makes it actually maybe really hard to manipulate. Everything you do in this building will change the original idea and composition that Breuer had in his mind. So one could actually wonder how adaptable is this building, how sort of interchangeable are the ideas that Breuer put in this. And actually the strong characteristics of this building are at the same time also the weak parts, the difficult parts, the simplicity and the strength of the sort of facade in its sort of a total facade. They actually make it really hard. Every little change you make, you disturb the facade, you disturb the composition. At the same time, it's very enclosed, which is fenced off to the city, which makes it really hard for this public function to express itself. But at the same time, you need sort of the enclosedness of the building to appreciate the views that he actually designed through it. You can only experience the transparency of these views if you have these enclosed blocks next to it. Also the way that he sort of made the entrances too, but also actually very modest in the building, which is a great feature for the building itself, because then you can sort of experience it almost as a monolith. But now for a future use, it's actually really hard to say what's the main entrance, what's the focus, how do I respond to the city and to my visitors. So I think it's a really hard challenge, and either you treat it really modest, as we saw with very sort of small, hardly visible interventions, hardly visible from the public space, or you put a rooftop extension, or you do something really radical. It will always, like my colleagues to the right say, it will always be controversial, because you touch something that's actually, it's like a complete through designed box, and anything you do will be controversial, but I think it will be, no matter what you do, it will be an iconic project for The Hague.
Clear statement.
Yeah.
Reynolds.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. The first thing is I agree with my colleagues on the right that it is a very inspirational survey you showed us. I think it shows one important thing is that there's not one solution that is the best solution for a building like this. So we saw a lot of different proposals. And in all these proposals, there are elements that are actually quite useful and quite easy to adapt to this in this building. So I think it's I don't see a very big dilemma actually. So I think it is possible to transform this building in a public building. And but I think the strongest concept or the strongest idea for this building is simplicity. Keep it simple. Just one good concept, and that will help any designer who is going to take well this journey to the transformation of this building. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, yeah, about the cultural significance of the building. There's another thing I would like to say, that is The Hague is the only city in the Netherlands where embassies where are embassies, and this is one of the few buildings that are designed as an embassy. So that's very important for the city to The Hague. Be aware that there are only a few. There was the French embassy next door that is already demolished. There's the German embassy, they're still there, and that's about it. So it's typology-wise, there are only two left. So we should take care of these buildings because it's part of the Hague heritage, and there's no other city that has embassies designed for this purpose.
Clear. Okay, well, now the floor is for the audience. I hope some students have some questions for the panel, or want to address maybe a topic. Keep silence. Yes. Answer, I don't think.
Yeah, so you said Breuer approached it as like a big project where everything's really designed from the start to begin, or from start to end. And I was wondering, do you think this redevelopment also should take this approach where you have one big concept and you redevelop it in one big way? Or should it be more experimental where you try little things out, like the approach West is maybe taking more now, where you try like a small thing out and see if it works? Or should it be like a big from top down and okay, this is a new concept, this is going to be, and then you work it out all again from start to end? Don't you think it will be, you will have the same problem in like 50 years?
Yeah, maybe I should try to give an answer. Well, I think it depends on which concept you present. For example, the idea of filling up the courtyard with a brutalist new element. I think if that's the only thing you add to the building, then it's okay. And keep the building as it is. And the other elements are more, other designs, proposals are more adding different small objects or small things or small alterations to the building throughout in a very modest way. That is also a concept that is, I think, very could be very convincing. So it depends on the approach, I think, whether it should be one big new thing or one new layer of things. I think there are different approaches.
I think it's going to be very difficult to control the concept, even if it's a top-down or bottom-up approach. That's the challenge of this whole building. You have a gut feeling that you need if you want a cultural function in this building and enhance the sexy or the sex appeal of the building, because that's what it lacks at this moment as a cultural building. It's still too much an embassy. It's still too much an office building. It lacks spectacular space, and you can ask yourself the question when you start with an assignment like that. Do I need to create a spectacular space, or should I start, with a spectacular program and a spectacular use? You need both actually for a good cultural building and a public building. So it's really looking for this balance continuously. You could try both approaches. You will face a lot of controversy and discussion with, let's say a very risky concept, a strong spatial addition to this building. That would be very, very difficult to achieve. And at the same time, I think you should start, like Akim said, try to use the building, try to discover its potential, try to reprogram it from the core, and maybe you can seek out, you can throw out lines toward the city. Now, all the examples that we have seen have tried to get the city into the building, but maybe it should be the other way around. So you can change also the perception of your concept from inside out instead of from outside in. We've seen lots of things trying to solve dilemmas about the entrance. We've seen lots of things trying to solve the rigidity of the interior, which is not really easily usable. It's a flexible floor plan, but it has columns on the place which you don't want them. It has a lot of rigidity in itself, in its setup. And the gut feeling says, I want to do something spectacular with this building because maybe it deserves it or maybe it appeals for it. So, I still haven't put an answer to that, but I think that's the challenge, to try and discover this as a designer, the one that will face this assignment.
We could say that the existing character is rather defensive. It's not inviting. I think that should maybe a question that should be addressed before you start. Do you want to transform that identity? If you say it must be a more, let me say, public, inviting building, then I think it should be transformed. And even you could say it is interesting if you compare it with Ministerie van Financiën on the opposite. That was also, let me say, refurbished, and you can all remember at the staircase at the corner. It was let me say, very also let me say defensive building, and they try to transform it a little bit more transparent building. And now on the corner where you have the staircase, that's transformed. And the question is if the building of Breuer is also asking for such a kind of transformation. Maybe it's not done at the other side, but the idea is clear. So do we, let me say, build for the people, or do we build for an idea of history? But then I have to look to Ryan there because he emphasized the uniqueness of the building. So that's his argument. The building is unique. That's why you should maintain it and in fact preserve it, not intervene, not change. But what is more important, that the city of The Hague functions well. Yeah, that's the council of The Hague will answer that question. Well, this is not for you an issue. It's already decided no, in fact we should maintain its character.
I just wanted to add something what you just said. When you look at currently, like what are the qualities of the building, then the quality, I believe, is that it's like just in between the Tweede Kamer, the Art Academy, and the Mauritshuis, and very good connected to the train station, and very visible at a historical location. And in combination with the whole historical context of the building. This I think is the unique quality, which also brings a unique opportunity at the moment to this building. Because what was my big surprise, now looking back 4 years, is that from a pragmatic point of view, it's not very practical, the building. It's very bad condition, the building. But everybody we asked until now, like also world famous artists who make perhaps like one project per year, everybody agreed to make a proposal. So then I realized like the potential of the building is in the current state is that with this building you can convince world famous artists to make site-specific projects, to make at all a project here, which a lot of other museums will not manage. And that I found very interesting, because that's what you just said, like where do you start? You can also start for the program. And I think that's important to reflect on that, like what are the qualities you can build on immediately at the moment. And with that...
Make use of the existing building.
Sorry?
Make use of the existing building.
You can start already now. You can start already now, and people are... the problem we have currently is like there are some proposals, what we have, what we got, very big proposals of projects which have like potentially get the media attention worldwide. But you can only do that once you agree that you take the building for the next 2, 3, 4 years for this, let's say, in-between time, where just like we have now something. There's nothing, there's for sure, like even if we make plans, it will take another 2, 3 years. But why not just take like 1 and 2 years and figure out what we can do? What are the real, what is potentially possible? And that would be my suggestion, to also go that way. Because it's a very big project, it's a very unique project, and I think it will be definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
We have to continue. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, but you still don't have a question. Yes, Sana. And maybe you can take the microphone. I don't know. Is that needed? We'll come from here, because otherwise.
I would like to ask the question that Alexander asked, because I'm also curious about what is the actual approach that needs to be taken for the transformation of this program, in terms of, does the building need to be rebuilt for the people or for the purpose of the architecture and its value? Because it's obvious that during its existence with the American Embassy, it was, I would say, almost like a self-centered building. It knew about its dominance in the area, and especially with the host at the time, which had a lot of impact in the area. So, do you think that it's sort of the time to think about things that can be useful for the city and for the people that are going to use the building, rather than what the building wants and has been impacting in the city for so long?
Let's say you have to solve 2 issues. You have to solve the issue of the building. You have to solve the issue of the function and its attractiveness to the public. Even though very present in the city, it's still very anonymous. That's a bit the dilemma. So you see the building, you walk next to it, you drive by car, you see that it's it's there, it's very present in very graphical sense of the let's say of the presence, but it misses something. We lost somehow the clarity of Breuer's concept. So to relate to the first question, how do you start? I think you should start by really putting all the values on the table that have been lost. It was one of the projects that started like that, to just reestablish the significance of all the elements in the composition of Breuer, and to see whether they're relevant to enhance the attractiveness of the building for the public. It starts with a good entrance. It starts, for example, for, let's say, people which are disabled or have less mobility. How do you get them inside the building? That's, I think, a bit challenged at this moment. It's a very small intervention, but you can start with this already. Then re-establishing the quality of the patio. The patio has turned into a bunker. It's been fenced off. It's lost its green outlines in the pavement. Let's say the water mirror, or it was a grass mirror, I think, has completely been destructured. This building was a very open building. It had a big window on that side behind the screen. You could look through it. There was daylight coming in to this big window behind me. You don't see that anymore. So you could start by just, putting back little things that are still there, or, for example, enhancing the transparency of the corridors between the two wings. Because if you see it clearly in the concept of Breuer, it was, let's say, a block and an entrance and a block and a corridor and a block and an entrance and a block again. You experience this openness on the ground floor, but you don't experience it in the elevation. So you see it a little bit at the main entrance because it's higher, but it's unclear. It's become unclear. So the first step would be, to give the building back to the public by just pinpointing which qualities you can reestablish in a very easy way, because we're living in times that we have to really pay attention to everything we do as architects to remain sustainable. I kind of missed that a bit in all the presentations. There were a few examples, but how do you cope with this environmental question when you act as an architect? I missed also a bit of the green structure. Nobody talked about the tree that's behind the corridor, the glass corridor. It's still the original tree. Some project is just gone. So keep the tree, start, keeping, and go back to the essence of the original design. Not just pushing it to restore the stage that Breuer has thought about, but try to give this interpretation in your own terms, in your own time frame, because we're living not in the 60s anymore, we're living in the year 2023, and that's very important to address as well. So what do you need today for this building, and what does the building can offer you today for let's say, the way we live?
Yeah, so nice.
Thank you.
Well, you also mentioned the fact that a building should be used, and the best way of keeping a building is, of course, its function. That's for sure. The city is not the building would not benefit from function, no function in it, no use of it, of course, and the city is not benefiting as well. So that's for sure. It has to be a good function and open to the public and things like that. But there's one thing that I would like to say is that the idea of accessibility, openness to the public, to the street, to the functions inside as well. So it's two ways, the other way around as well. All museums in existing buildings are experiencing this problem at the moment. For example, the Boijmans van Beuningen in Rotterdam will be transformed. It's closed for 7 years for many technical problems, asbestos and things like that. And now they're redesigning it to a new museum, to transformed, not into a museum because it's already a museum, but in a more public. But the proposal to actually cut a piece of the existing Van der Steur building is not accepted by the museum because they love the building they're in. So the most important thing is that you need somebody who wants to be in this building, and then and then have a closer look to what's really needed to be an open and accessible building, but to start with sort of ownership of the building, that you really like the fact that you're in this building. That's always mostly it's the other way around. This is the building is owned by the city, and the city has to look for a function, and then these institutions have to be, one is already in it, so that's a good start, and the other one is maybe it sees an opportunity to make a new modern museum, but maybe it's better to start with a building for them as well. So maybe they should program already in it. And
Yeah, just a short.
I totally agree, because I think this building suffers now from the lack of decision making, on giving back the original values, the lack of decision making for this will be a museum, period, like Hakim said. The decision making on having Escher in here. I think even if you don't do anything to this building and you put Escher in here, it will attract a lot of people, because the program of the Escher Museum is that valuable in itself. So the key is in how to combine all these little things. And maybe the building doesn't need a big architectural intervention in itself. Maybe it's even enough to solve these practicalities of having a good entrance for everybody, disabled people, whatsoever. Maybe that's enough.
All in favor? All in favor?
Yeah.
If there was a question? Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm not a student, so
No problem.
I live here in The Hague, and I visit this place very often. For me, it's as if Breuer shows us a riddle in the form of this building, a riddle which holds the symbol of the keystone, which is the keystone of the bridge or the arcade or the portal. And I think it's a brilliant symbol of the embassy, of an American embassy, which is in Western Europe, able to hold a lot of pressure, but also in the function of building bridges, as I think Breuer also proposed through his architectural concept. So a portal, a bridge, a connector. But I find it very interesting that a lot of people here are asking questions about the function of the building. And I think a keystone on itself is a architectural element that lost its function, because keystone functions thanks to the other stones that it is actually holding. So what I was just thinking, where is the actual arcade? Where is the actual bridge? Where is the actual portal? Or where are the stones that together form the actual passage? And I was thinking, Breuer showing us many times in this building the image of the keystone, as if he tries to say something.
Can
So-
you end with a final question, and then we can ask if
I
anybody
was
want to give
wondering-
sorry?
How do you see the bridge? In what form would you see the function of the bridge in this building? The bridge, the arcade, the connector.
But the bridge is
The
always
portal.
between two, let me say, parts.
It's a conceptual but also concrete element in the city. So
Yeah, I would say, you mean a bridge between Europe and Russia?
it's a question to you, for me, but for example, a bridge in the city between art and politics, between
Okay, can this building be a connector?
so this is a creative question, eh? I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay.
it's,
Thank you for the question. It's definitely a hotspot in the city because it's part of a bigger ensemble of cultural buildings in The Hague. It's Museumkwartier. So you can connect this building to other museums. So there must be interactions and synergy between those cultural institutions. So if let's say Escher would move out from Paleis Lange Voorhout, there would be a building free there for another cultural institution or other museum, which would also be like maybe matching the Paleis Lange Voorhout even better. Escher and this building have a bond in a graphical way, so that there's your bridge. There is a cultural link in a graphical sense between this building and Escher. When we studied that with Braxma and Roos at the time, we immediately saw the relationship between the two in a graphical sense. So I think this building is suited for Escher, and it screams Escher also, if you look at this.
Do you also have suggestions other than Escher? Because there's also the
No,
art
because I mean I don't know. I mean I'm just saying that because there are, let's say, rumors and there are, let's say, intentions that
it's a
have
more open question.
that are not unspoken yet. But I think the idea, if Escher would come, let's say Escher would come here, it would be obvious that you don't have to do much with the building because the collection is strong enough and appealing enough. So the building is just a mere envelope, and it's fine, you know. And I think for you to answer your question, so you must be seeking a synergy between those cultural institutions, those museums in The Hague, in the center of The Hague. Then you bridge things. You bridge Gevangenpoort with Escher, you bridge Escher with Paleis, you make cross connections like that. And as a network, you can start, you know, putting this building into a new perspective and a broader perspective. So that's one thing that the municipality can decide and, you know, can take care of. As for the physical bridge, I think this building is like very, let's say, hoogdrempelig. How do you say that in English? It's very difficult to access because it's on a pedestal, and it's not connected to the ground floor. I mean, we saw some examples, you know, trying to dig out Langevoorhout, which would be very difficult because you have lots of trees there. You have a monument in front of this building and will not be moved. But there are, let's say, ideas, lots of ideas today that have been proposed to connect, to make this physical bridge with the city by putting an iconic object or by, you know, making a street through the building. It's already there. It's already there. If you connect the back and the front,
To wrap it up,
you already have a bridge. Yeah.
it is a good image to remember this building. How can it be a connector in the city?
Can I have one last remark? Sort of being the representative of the city municipality here. I think we already, as a city, decided that this building is a bridge, sort of apart from Escher or whatever function in here, because the city bought the building, and they bought it because they saw that it's this cornerstone within the urban fabric between different parts of the city center. They bought it because they see the potential of sort of emphasizing and making the museum quarter stronger. So apart from whether it be Escher or some other public function, I think it should be a public function. The building in itself, its location, its iconic facade, it's already this cornerstone sort of bridging between the museum quarter and the rest of the Binnenstad city center.
Thank you for these words, Eugène, and here we are going to end this meeting. Thanks a lot for you being here. I hope you enjoyed it, at least I did. Thank you very much